thank you so much for being with us here at Uninorte.
My pleasure.
We're very happy to have you the second time around.
Good to be here.
We remember your visit. That was your first visit to Colombia, which was
Yes, it was. Yes.
in 2013.
Correct.
And you came to our institution.
did.
Since then, we've been working together on a project.
Indeed, we have.
Can you tell me a little bit about what brings you to Uninorte this time around?
Well, actually a combination of things. Several universities in Bogota had contacted me about the possibility of coming and working with their faculty, and I agreed to do that. And of course, you and I were working on this project together, so it seemed like to both of us, I think, an excellent opportunity to get together in person, because we had been having lots of Skype and telephone conversations for about a year and a half on the project.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what the project is about.
In some ways, it is a replication of the study that I did for what the best college teachers do. And what we are attempting to do, as you know, is to begin with focus groups of students and faculty here at Uninorte, and to explore their thinking about what it means to be a good teacher. And then to take that and to turn it back around to them, to let them know what we are hearing in terms of the broader literature and the ideas that are coming out of that literature, and to see if there are similarities, and if there are, we share that back with the faculty. Now, we've done that over the last year or so, and collected a lot of data from the focus groups, and now turning it back around to the faculty to verify that this, in essence, is what they meant. And I think we're finding initially that, yes, indeed it is. That we understood quite well the ideas and concepts that they were trying to put forward in their concept of what it means to be a good teacher.
Now, from your perspective, and from what you have garnered from the project so far, what do professors here at Uninorte understand then good teaching to be?
I think primarily they understand good teaching in terms of good learning. That good teaching is, in essence, cultivating good learning. Now, one of the concepts that I heard, and I think you heard as well, they're expressing, although they didn't necessarily use this language, is what in the literature is called deep learning, a learning that has a sustained and substantial influence on the way in which students will subsequently think and act and even feel, and learning that leads to critical thinking, that leads to a very deep understanding of material. So good teaching is defined in that it encourages and helps students in sufficient numbers to learn in ways that make that sustained and substantial difference, and that it leads to learning that deepens one's understanding, that deepens one's ability to think about implications and applications and even possibilities coming out of that learning, to be able to theorize from that learning, and then to be able to examine one's own learning and to think critically about that learning. So I think primarily they have defined teaching in terms of the learning that they are attempting to foster. So a good teacher, in essence, fosters good learning.
And how do you see these initial findings relate to what the literature is telling us about teaching and learning in higher education?
Well, they are remarkably similar in nature, and also quite similar to the findings that I encountered more broadly in the study that I did primarily in the United States from about 1987 on up to 2002. So very similar kinds of ideas that are coming out of this set of interviews. And at the same time, I think it reflects, again, that emphasis upon learning and upon the development of a certain kind of expertise on the part of the students. There's an idea that it exists in the theoretical and research literature that makes a very important distinction between what is called routine experts and adaptive experts. And the distinction is fairly simple but extraordinarily profound, namely that routine experts are people who know all the routines. Well, that's one level of learning, but an adaptive expert not only knows all those common routines for solving problems, for doing things, but also has the ability and the capacity and even the interest to innovate when necessary, when there are no solutions, to go beyond just the set routines. And while the faculty did not use that specific language, I think many of the words that they use and many of the situations that they describe seem clear to me that that's what they were interested in their students, that ability to use and to think about and to critically examine the ideas and the information that the students encounter in their classes.
Mm-hmm. And you visited several universities, both in the U.S. and in many different countries around the world.
Yes, I have.
Are there other institutions that you know of that have had interest in replicating your study?
Well, there are a number of institutions that have had an interest in doing so, but I really don't know of another one that has carried out something as extensively as we have carried out here at Uninorte. So it's quite exciting to me to see, the attempt to basically replicate and to deepen the study. I think you and I have discovered some approaches and ways of thinking about exploring good teaching that I did not employ in the first study. So in many ways, this is a much deeper study, and I think in long-range terms can be a even more meaningful. But what is important in it, I think, is that it is taking place in a completely different culture in which I did the first study. And it is finding many of the same results in terms of concepts of what it means to be a good teacher and how one can expect to carry out that good teaching. So this is quite exciting to me.
And for us as well. Taking into consideration some of these initial findings, what do you think can be some obstacles that professors can identify when they try to enact these characteristics of good teaching?
Well, I think one obstacle can arise as we pursue deep learning. Now, what we know from the research and theoretical literature, and I think what many of these faculty members realize, is that the first step in cultivating deep learning is to encourage students' intentions to learn deeply. And we know that intentions play a huge role, and that students will not always come into the university with the intention to learn deeply. That they may come in with the intention to make very good grades, but that's not necessarily the intention to actually understand deeply. And we also know, I think, from the literature and from the experience that these faculty members have had, that those intentions are largely a product of earlier conditioning. So one major obstacle is that students may come into a class or to the university having been conditioned to just pursue grades without the intention to really learn deeply and to think very deeply about the meaning and the implications and applications and possibilities of that which they are learning. So I think that's a huge issue that we are constantly struggling with. There are some others that I think are not so much obstacles, but certainly challenges for faculty members. They can be in terms of the size of the class, for example, and being able to give students adequate feedback in terms of their own agenda, their own responsibilities beyond teaching. Many faculty members, of course, have responsibilities toward their own learning and their ability to do research in their field. And while there is a similarity between teaching on the one hand and research on the other, there is a very important connection, namely that they are both concerned with learning. One is focused on the learning of faculty, to be sure, while the other one is focused upon the learning of students. Nevertheless, there are places in which, just simply for a matter of time, there's not enough time to focus adequately on both. And this is a challenge to faculty members, to find ways of ensuring that their own learning and the learning of the students complement one another rather than stand in conflict and in competition.
So can you tell us a little bit about the next steps in the project?
Yes, very exciting next steps for the project. We are going to look at, continuing to look at, I should say, the process of getting some verification from the faculty that what we have heard is precisely what they meant. And then the next steps beyond that, I think, are, as you and I have agreed, is that we will look at faculty members who have represented these qualities and to see what they are doing to carry out the goals and the criteria that they have so wonderfully identified in their projects. And then I think beyond that, we're looking at the ways in which we can maybe take some representative faculty or a small group of faculty and work with them to incorporate into their teaching the broad body of ideas about good teaching that come from a lot of different sources, but we will try to bring all of that together for specific faculty members and help them transform the learning environments that they are creating by making more of the whole than the collection of the individual parts.
And when do you think we can have you again on campus?
Oh, I'd love to come next week, but that might be difficult. I think we're going to have to talk about that and possibilities of being here again. I would love to come back.
Okay. We would love to have you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure. It's good to be here.